Hi folks, I have another unit from my friend Steve. This is a Marantz 2225. It's got some switch damage we're going to have to repair, and it does work. I was able to get signal through it, but it goes in and out of protection, and I'm not sure what's going on with that. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to disassemble it, replace a broken base pot here, and a broken loudness control here. Now both these still work. You can grab this with a set of pliers, you can push this one in, but we're going to fix those first, then we're going to go through and see if we can find out what's going on with this thing, because it shouldn't be going in and out of protection. Okay, as I get ready to work on this, I like to show this every few videos. I've gotten a lot of positive comments, but I use a bag system because I generally have more than one thing taken apart, and I have gotten things messed up, confused, you name it. But anyway, I take a large bag, I refer to as the master bag, and I write down what the unit is, and then I have these other bags, and since I've used these before, they're already pre-marked: front, cover, bottom. So as I take the screws out, they're going to go in there. I got the cover screws off, I threw them in my magnetic tray here, so they go in here, and that goes into the master bag. The other thing I do, because again, having more than one thing taken apart and more than one Marantz on occasion, even though some of these things are interchangeable, I take a pencil and lightly inside, you can't even see it because it's so light, but this says 2225. So that's why I make sure I don't get the covers messed up here. Now, we got to pull the front off to get at the pots. We're going to have to pull the bottom off too. So you pull the knobs, they just come right off like this. Some of them are a little tighter than others. And I'll have a bag for these. Okay, let me just take a screwdriver and gently pry this. And I believe it's a 5/8 nut driver to get these guys off in the corners. But the one thing I didn't realize the first time I went to pull one of these off and couldn't get it off, this just has a nut here, but some of them have a recessed nut that doesn't even, looks like a bushing, but that has to be spun off as well. So I'll get that, get these, and the front will come off. Okay, I was mistaken. I misspoke. This is actually a 5/16, not a 5/8. I'm really bad at this. I really wish we'd have gone metric like the rest of the world did. But in any event, this is a 5/16 nut driver. That'll get those. I loosened this. You can see what I mean when I say it looks more like a bushing than a nut. This one has a hex you can grab with a socket or pair of pliers. Some of the other ones just have two slits here, and they're round. So you just basically have to stick a screwdriver in one of the slits and spin it off. But this gets these, and when all four of these are out, the front will come right off. You don't have to remove, well, you do have to remove the slider for the balance, but the other ones should just slide right through the panel. Yeah. And then we'll have to get the bottom off. I have, Steve brought me, and this is again another one of Steve's items, he brought me a board that had the volume, bass, and treble. All three of these are the same. I just pulled the one in the middle out. The one he got here, the bass shaft is bent, so I just took the second one. I think that's mid. And now that I got those off, front comes off. So we are going to have to replace this switch and this pot. And it's going to take a fair amount of disassembly to get to these, but I'll show you what I do as I do it. Okay, so I've got the bottom off here, and this is the tone board. We're going to have to pull this off to change this broken pot out. And basically all we should have to do is pull all three of these nuts off, and this board may come out far enough. May have to cut some lacing on some of these. Sometimes the wires are really tight, but I'll find out as I get into this. Okay, so I've got all the nuts and washers removed here. I don't know if you can hear this in the background. I got a new washing machine and it makes some funky noises. I mean, there are times it sounds like a robotic cat hacking up a hairball. Anyway, hope that's not too distracting. So now that I got those out, I should be able to push this back if I have enough slack here. And I have a ring here I need to take off. Okay, so you can see I just got to unsolder this, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the others. I am just going to put some fresh solder on here, unsolder this, and replace it with the one I took from Steve's donor board. Okay, so got this replaced. We are in good shape here. Now we have 3 working pots. I took the liberty of, while I was in here, to clean these pots because they're a pain to get to when you're in there. So spray some deoxit, fader lube in all 3 of these, and the volume control while I was here. Now, looks like these screws will remove this assembly. I think it's going to be a bear to get out. I may have to take these off. I'm really loath to do so because I don't want to break any more of these. And I'm not sure that the donor I have here is exactly the same. This came from a 2245. I think there was I bought 2 carcasses from a gentleman who just sent them to me for the price of shipping. So I have some parts and hopefully we'll be able to replace this. All right, this was a lot more involved than I wanted it to be, but in order to get this board out the bottom, I couldn't get it through the top because there's not enough slack in the wiring. I had to loosen the screws that hold the front panel on. Now you have to be careful because part of the tuner string is not attached to the front, it's attached to the chassis. So that was my first problem. Then I had to remove the volume pot and the power switch assembly so I could bring it out down here. And now I just need to make sure that this is going to be the same. It looks like this is the same board. I guess we're going to find out. I'm going to have to take the switches out, and I may just look in the manuals and see if the part numbers match, but I'm fairly confident that I'm going to be able to use one of these. All right, so I removed the pot from the donor board here, or the switch, I'm sorry. And in order to do so, you not only have to unsolder the pins, but you also have to bend these tabs up. See how they're bent over here on the one next to it? So you have to bend these tabs up and then carefully pry it out. And then we're going to have to do the reverse process here. So interestingly, this board looks like the same board, except that it's kind of mirror imaged. So I couldn't just change the whole board out, and honestly, with all the wires on it, it's really easier to just change out the broken switch. So I'm going to get this one out. We'll seat the old one in. I'm going to match up the part numbers. This says it's a Toco 6S. Or is that F? I'm sorry, 6 Foxtrot. So we'll have to see if they match up. And again, I may just check the manuals just to be sure because I really don't want to do this more than once. Fact of the matter is I didn't want to do it once. Anyhow, let me get this out, take a look at it, and we'll be right back. All right, this is one of those good news, bad news, good news things. All right, so the switch that I pulled, my donor, is a 6 Foxtrot. However, the broken one is a 14 November. So the good news is it appears electrically these switches are the same. They look identical. Of course, you can't trust that. But if we have both of them in the out position, and fortunately this is a simple switch, we have our common here. So in the out position, we have continuity there and there. No continuity here, no continuity here. In the out position here, it's the same. And that was just me touching the leads together. Okay, so if we push them in, and I'm going to leave them like that because these contacts on the top are probably going to be easier to get to. Oh my God, fine. Is that it? Come on. I don't fumble around as much when the camera's off. I need to clean these up a little bit. Yeah, these switches probably need to be cleaned. But anyway, while I've got it out, you can see that electrically they are the same. So I'm going to clean these switches up a little bit and try and get this all back together. So I've got this mounted, got our tabs bent back over here, and I'm going to try and get this, I'm going to get this back into place. Yes, it is trying, but I will get this back into place and put the power switch and the volume pot back in. By the way, in order to get the volume pot out, I got that out easily enough, and then there's a shield that goes over the volume pot. That has to go in first. So get this in, get the shield in, then we can put everything else back. Okay, so I've got this all back together, and I made a pretty dumb mistake. Not that I make intelligent ones, but in any event. I put the switches in, and when I went to get the front panel to make sure, because I wasn't sure if this power went this way or 180 degrees the other way, so I wanted to size it. When I did, these didn't line up. Now you notice they put a lot of holes in here that they don't use. I assume they punch out one front panel for a lot of different models, and I had put these up here. Now, if I had been born or trained myself to be a more observant human, I would have realized when I went to put the screw in here, wait a second, look at the blue screw lock compound. That's down here. But I wasn't paying attention because I'm usually not. And therefore, I had to take it all back apart, slide these down one, and now the front panel lines up. And everything will go back on. So, I try to learn from my mistakes. I try not to make the same ones more than once. I occasionally do. But there are so many more mistakes I've yet to make. And as I've often said, I haven't made every mistake there is to make, but I'm working on it. All right, so I got this all put together and fired it up, and it doesn't come out of protection. So I'm going to show you what I spotted here and talk briefly about what I saw before I even took this apart. So I got it turned on, and I'm just going to go look at the emitter resistor here. We got 6 volts at that emitter resistor. I was going to keep it in protection. Other channel, looks like we have about 0.8, 0.9. Not great, but not enough to pop it into protection. Now, I find the easiest place to check for this, since it's in protection, you can't check for offset at the speaker terminals. I usually just go and find an emitter resistor. Now, this is starting to drop as it warms up. And what happened when Steve was here and showing me this thing is it eventually did come out of protection. It just takes a long time and it pops in and out. And while I was watching it on the scope, I could see that there was a lot of jumping up and down the oscilloscope traces, which translates to crackling in the speakers. And if I was to just hook this up to the scope, you'd see that. So it's not dropping very quickly. Okay, I'm going to see where the offset pots are. It's a lot of offset. Bottom line, the crackling, the jumping of the traces I saw mean that the differential pairs are going to have to be changed out. My Peak Atlas died. It's $100 flat rate to fix it. I bought one of these guys. They're about 20 bucks. If it dies, I'm not going to cry. I spent good money on that Peak, and I don't think I'm going to get it fixed. I may look at it myself, but I'm not going to send it in for $100. I paid over $100 when I bought it. So I'm just going to use those for matching transistors. Meantime, yeah, this isn't dropping it very quickly. So I think what I'm going to do, I got to change them anyway. I'm going to change the differential pairs, and it should pop right out of protection and stay out. All right, so I replaced both differential pairs, and I got it plugged into the dim volt tester with a 100-watt lamp in there. Flip it on. And it comes out of protection. So let me just take a look here. I've got, okay, that looks like 60 millivolts of offset there. And about 100 there. Now I didn't adjust anything, but you recall we had like 6 volts, so it's way better now. And I'm going to do the adjustments on the output stage. I think this is going to be good now. Also have to look at the photo inputs, and I believe Steve said that this has a weak tuner, so we're going to have to take a look at that. But I'm going to let this warm up and going to adjust the offset and the bias. So one of the things that Steve told me was going on with this unit is that he tried to adjust the 35 volt regulated output, and he was only able to get it up to about 34.2 volts. Now this isn't terrible, but it is indicative of a problem, and I was concerned about it because the FM is very weak, and this 14 volt point here is what feeds the tuner. So I wanted to see what the problem was. And in order to do that, let me explain to you how this circuit works and the steps I took to successfully troubleshoot it. First element we have here is our series pass transistor, so named because all the current flows through from collector to emitter through this transistor. This transistor is known as the error amplifier because it looks at the 35 volt here and it will correct any sags or increases. This is the voltage divider, which is used to feed the error amplifier. And this is where the error amplifier feeds the base of the series pass transistor. So if we look at this, the emitter of the error amplifier is clamped to 14 volts by this Zener diode. This Zener is what supplies the FM. And if you look here, you have your Zener and its associated series resistor here. Excuse me. What happens is, if the voltage were to drop here, the voltage at the base of the error amplifier would drop. And remember, the emitter is clamped, so if this drops, this transistor is going to go more into cutoff, and the voltage here will tend to rise. It's getting its voltage through here from the 45 volt. So if that rises, therefore this will rise. Conversely, if this goes up, it'll turn the transistor on more, pulling this voltage down, and therefore pulling this voltage down. We have 45 volts here, and you need a certain amount of headroom in order to have regulation. So we had our 45 volts here. The adjustment pot was all the way to extreme end, and we were getting 34.2 volts here. So what I did was I added up all these resistances, which comes out to 68,000 ohms, and I divided it by the measured 34.2 volts. And that got me voltage drops across each one of these resistors of 13.58, 2.51, and 18.11. However, when I actually measured the voltage drop, I got closer to 16 here. And that's going to limit how low we're going to be able to get this voltage here. And that's why we were not able to get our 35 volts here. What happened was this 27K resistor had increased in value. It was measured 32.35. And that's very unusual because these are carbon film resistors and they tend not to drift. Now when I talk about resistors drifting, resistors only drift up. They never drift below their rated value. They always drift above the rated value. This is a real problem when you have carbon composition resistors. The old original ones that had the dark brown bodies, they are prone to drifting, sometimes very badly, especially in old tube equipment where they get stressed a lot. Very unusual for film resistors to drift like this. These are carbon film. They tend to have a light brown body. Metal film will have a blue body as a rule. So that's what happened to this. And I didn't think it was giving me a problem with the FM, but I have learned the hard way, the way I seem to have to learn everything, that if you see a problem, fix it. You may not think it's related to what you're dealing with, but you may find out it is. And I have spent hours of fruitless troubleshooting only to come back to the problem I didn't think was causing my problem, but was actually causing my problem. So whenever I see anything like this now, I always address it. So replacing this resistor with a 27K allowed us to get our 35 volts here with room to spare. So the pot is no longer pegged at one end and not putting out enough voltage. This unit has some serious FM problems, so I am going to stop this video here and have a part 2 dealing with the FM. I haven't even checked the phono yet. So anyway, as always, I thank everyone for watching, and I like giving back to the community that's given me so much. Thank you so much, folks.